Okay, let's dive in. There's this pretty startling fact to kick things off. A train route, the Metro North Line, was actually faster back in 1914 than it is today, in 2023.
Yeah, it really makes you think, doesn't it? Something feels off track. And that sets up the core idea we're exploring today, based on the source material breakneck, China's quest to engineer the future.
Right. Our mission here is to unpack this big comparison everyone's talking about, the U.S. as the lawyerly society versus China as the engineering state.
Exactly, that's the central framework. The idea is the US system is, well, heavily influenced by a legal perspective, very focused on rules, rights, procedures.
Okay.
Whereas in China, you often see leaders with engineering backgrounds. Their bias is towards building things, towards efficiency, sometimes, above everything else.
But hang on, doesn't the lawyerly society give us things we really value, like environmental protection, property rights, the rule of law? Maybe the slowdown is just the price we pay.
That's the critical tension, the real aha moment here. Yes, those rights are protected. But the source argues the sheer volume of process, the layers of rules, can slow down physical project, think infrastructure, housing to almost a standstill.
While the engineering state.
Is incredibly fast, super efficient at building, but the flip side is often a disregard for individual rights. The population can sometimes be treated almost like, well, building material.
High-speed rail seems like the perfect example of this clash. Both China and California had big plans starting around 2008, right?
That's right. And the contrast is just stark. China built the Beijing-Shanghai line, that's over 800 miles in just 3 years.
3 years, wow.
Yeah, and it's moved, 1.3 billion passengers in its first decade? Meanwhile, California, their first, much shorter segment, Bakersfield to Merced, it's now looking at opening somewhere between 2030 and 2033.
So more than 20 years after the initial approval. Why? What are the reasons given?
Well, officials point to exactly what you'd expect in the lawyerly society. Environmental reviews, navigating complex legislation, addressing local concerns. It's all that procedural friction.
And it's not just trains, is it? This difficulty in building physical things seems broader. The source material has that pretty provocative line about the U.S. manufacturing base having rusted from top to bottom.
Ooh, yeah, it's a strong claim, but you see examples. Intel, struggling to hit production targets compared to competitors. Boeing's recent safety issues are worrying. Detroit's long decline.
And remember the pandemic, shortages of basic things like masks, cotton swabs, even munitions.
And the really crucial thing that gets lost, according to the analysis, is something called process knowledge. You might call it know-how or tacit knowledge, or the Greeks called it metis.
Okay, what exactly is that?
It's the skill that you can't just write down in a manual or a blueprint. Think about it like this. You could have a state-of-the-art kitchen, all the best ingredients, a detailed recipe for scrambled eggs, but if you've never actually cooked before...
You're probably going to make a mess.
Exactly. It's that learned, practiced, almost intuitive skill of how to actually do it right, consistently, at scale. That's the kind of knowledge that seems to have eroded in some U.S. industries. It just walked out the door over decades.
Okay, but both models have their downsides, their excesses. Let's be fair. The engineering state in China...
Yeah.
It doesn't just stop at building bridges, does it?
No, absolutely not. It extends into social engineering. And that's where you see deeply concerning outcomes, like the human rights situation in places like Xinjiang and Tibet.
And policies like zero COVID.
Right. The Shanghai lockdown, 25 million people confined for 8 weeks. Or think back to the one-child policy. It reflects a mindset where the state sometimes views the population itself as a system to be managed, optimized, engineered.
But the lawyerly society isn't immune to problems either. It produces its own kind of, well, absurdity sometimes. Simple things become incredibly complex and expensive.
Oh, definitely. The classic example cited is that $1.7 million project for a single prefabricated public toilet in San Francisco. It becomes a symbol of how procedures can spiral.
So the takeaway seems to be that both systems are, as the source puts it, delivering self-humiliations on a daily basis. Neither is perfect.
Which leads to the really interesting question for you, the listener. What's the right mix? How do you find a better balance? The suggestion floated is maybe the U.S. needs to lean, say, 10% more towards engineering. Meaning getting better and faster at the basics, building mass transit efficiently, streamlining housing construction, maybe ensuring public order more effectively, just getting the essential physical stuff done.
And China.
Maybe needs to lean perhaps 20% more towards the lawyerly side, more focus on protecting individual rights, less censorship, more rule of law that applies to the state as well.
The goal for the U.S. wouldn't be to become China, but maybe just
Denmark.
Efficient, clean, functional construction and services.
Something like that, getting the fundamentals right.
Okay, so wrapping this up, what's the final picture for you to keep in mind? On one hand, the U.S. still seems to have a significant edge in the sort of abstract, high-tech realm, AI, software, a lot of the IP coming out of Silicon Valley.
True. But China has this immense dominance in the physical world. The industrial base, the manufacturing capacity, the supply chains for absolutely critical goods.
Like what?
Think rare earth magnets essential for electric vehicles, wind turbines, guided missiles, or basic pharmaceuticals. A huge chunk of the world's antibiotics and even things like ibuprofen depend on Chinese manufacturing.
And that dependence has real teeth. Remember when the Trump administration proposed tariffs and Beijing hinted they might restrict rare earth exports?
The U.S. backed down pretty quickly on some of those tariffs. It showed the leverage that physical supply chains provide.
So here's the final thought we want to leave you with. Can a nation really secure its future primarily on the strength of its ideas, its AI, its intellectual property, when it's deeply reliant on a strategic competitor for the actual physical materials needed to build everything from EVs to advanced weapons to essential medicines? Is leading in the abstract enough if you've lost the ability to make things? Something for you to consider.